Rex Carter had always prided himself on being the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything. 23 years of salvage, running through the outer rim, had taught him that a quick tongue and a charming smile could get you out of more trouble than any plasma rifle. That confidence evaporated the moment his battered freighter, the Lucky Strike, came screaming out of hyperspace directly into the gravity well of Zarian, Prime's forbidden moon. The impact crater his ship carved into the crystalline surface was probably visible from orbit. Rex groaned as he pulled himself from the pilot's seat, tasting blood and feeling the familiar ache of a concussion settling in. Emergency lights bathed the cockpit in hellish red, and the acrid smell of burning electronics filled his nostrils. Through the cracked viewport, he could see the twisted wreckage of what had once been his livelihood scattered across an alien landscape of black stone and silver trees. Well, shit, he muttered, checking his emergency beacon. Dead. Of course it was dead. Everything on this rust bucket was held together with prayer and recycled parts. He'd been running a routine salvage operation in the Kepler debris field when his nav computer had suffered what the technical manuals politely called a catastrophic miscalculation. What it really meant was that he'd jumped blind into one of the most dangerous sectors in known space, Zarian Prime. Even the name made seasoned spacers cross themselves and check their weapon charges. Home to the Zarian Empire, a collection of reptilian warrior clans that had been conquering and enslaving star systems since before humans had figured out fire. Their moon was supposed to be some kind of sacred burial ground, protected by automated defense systems that could vaporize a dreadnought before its captain could blink. Rex was still wondering why those defenses hadn't turned him into cosmic dust when the ground began to vibrate. Through the viewport, he watched in fascination and growing terror as sleek, predatory shapes emerged from hidden bunkers in the crystalline cliffs. Zarian Death Guard, the elite warriors who served as both honor guard and executioners for the royal family. Their powered armor gleamed like liquid mercury, and each one stood nearly 8 feet tall. "Okay, Rex," he whispered to himself, checking his sidearm and finding precious little comfort in its weight. "Time to see if that silver tongue of yours works on giant space lizards." The Death Guard moved with terrifying efficiency, surrounding his crashed ship in a perfect tactical formation. Rex had seen enough military operations to recognize professional soldiers when he saw them. These weren't mindless brutes, they were calculating predators, who had probably been killing things since before his great-grandfather was born. When they breached his airlock, Rex had his hands raised and his most disarming smile plastered across his face. "Gentlemen, ladies, distinguished reptilian persons, I come in peace, and I'd like to file a complaint about your traffic control system." The lead Death Guard distinguished by additional spikes on his armor and what looked like a necklace of finger bones tilted his massive head and spoke in perfect, if heavily accented standard. "Human, you have violated sacred ground. The penalty is death." "Now hold on," Rex said, his smile never wavering even as his heart hammered against his ribs. "I'm sure we can work something out. I'm just a simple salvage operator who took a wrong turn at the butt of an energy rifle caught him in the solar plexus, dropping him to his knees and driving all the air from his lungs. As he gasped and wheezed, powerful claws seized his arms and hauled him upright. The Death Guard captain leaned down until Rex could smell the alien's breath like copper and ozone. "You will be brought before Princess Kithara," the captain hissed. "She will decide how you die." The journey through the underground complex was a blur of obsidian corridors and alien architecture that seemed designed to intimidate. Bioluminescent panels cast everything in an eerie blue-green glow, and the walls were covered in intricate carvings that depicted what Rex assumed were glorious battles and ritual sacrifices. The Death Guard marched him through halls lined with the preserved remains of various alien species, each one mounted like a trophy. Charming interior decorating, Rex commented, earning himself another painful jab from a rifle butt. Really brings out the homicidal psychopath aesthetic you're going for. The throne room, when they finally reached it, was a masterpiece of intimidation architecture. The ceiling soared at least 50 feet overhead, supported by pillars carved to look like massive Xerian warriors. The floor was polished black stone inlaid with silver that formed complex geometric patterns. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were skulls. They lined the walls, hung from the ceiling, and formed elaborate displays that probably had deep cultural significance that Rex was too terrified to appreciate, but all of that paled in comparison to the figure seated on the throne at the far end of the chamber. Princess Kithara was everything the stories said and worse. 7 feet of pure predator, with obsidian scales that seemed to absorb light and reflect it back in subtle hypnotic patterns. Her build was that of a warrior, broad shoulders, powerful arms, and a presence that filled the room like a physical force. She wore ceremonial armor that looked like it had been forged from the bones of her enemies, all flowing curves and wicked spikes that somehow managed to be both beautiful and terrifying. But it was her eyes that really got to Rex. Golden, with vertical pupils that tracked his every movement with the patience of an apex predator sizing up its next meal. When she spoke, her voice was a low contralto that seemed to resonate in his bones. "So," she said, leaning forward slightly on her throne, "a human trespasses on sacred ground and lives long enough to stand before me. How unusual." Rex found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. "Your Highness, Princess, ma'am. I want to start by saying this is all a big misunderstanding. My nav computer malfunctioned and—" Silence. The word cracked like a whip, and Rex's mouth snapped shut involuntarily. Princess Kithara rose from her throne with fluid grace, each movement precise and controlled. As she descended the steps toward him, Rex couldn't help but notice the collection of skulls that adorned her chest armor. They were arranged in a complex pattern, each one different in size and shape, some bearing what looked like ceremonial markings. "Tell me, human," she continued, stopping just close enough that Rex could feel the heat radiating from her scaled skin. "What do you know of human military capabilities? Your fleet strengths? Your defensive positions?" Rex blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, what?" "Lady, I'm a salvage runner. I pick up scrap metal and sell it to recycling stations. I couldn't tell you the difference between a destroyer and a garbage scow if my life depended on it. Which, it probably does right now." Those golden eyes narrowed, and Rex felt like a mouse being studied by a particularly intelligent cat. "You expect me to believe that Earth sends its civilians into the Outer Rim without military escort? That you operate alone, with no backup, no support network?" "Well, when you put it like that, it does sound pretty stupid," Rex admitted. His eyes drifted back to her chest armor, fascination overriding his terror. The skull arrangement was incredibly intricate, and he found himself trying to puzzle out the pattern. Some were clearly from different species. The bone density and cranial structure varied wildly. But others looked almost identical, with only subtle differences in the orbital sockets and jaw structure. "Your chest is impressive," he blurted out, immediately realizing what he'd just said. The throne room fell silent. Not just quiet silent in the way that only comes when every living thing in a space suddenly stops breathing at the same time. The Death Guard flanking him went rigid, their weapons rising slightly as if preparing for the order to fire. Even the bioluminescent panels seemed to dim, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Rex felt his knees go weak as he realized he'd just commented on the physical attributes of an alien princess who could probably tear him in half without breaking a sweat. In front of her elite guard, in her own throne room, he was so very, very dead. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Rex could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, could feel sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the throne room. Princess Cathara stood frozen, her golden eyes locked on his face with an intensity that made him want to crawl under the nearest rock and hide. Then something impossible happened. The princess took a step backward. It was subtle, barely a shift in her stance. But Rex had spent enough time reading body language in cantinas and trading posts to recognize fear when he saw it. The problem was, Princess Cathara wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of what he'd just said. "Guards," she said, her voice carefully controlled but with an underlying tremor that hadn't been there before. "Leave us." The Death Guard captain's head snapped toward her, his reptilian features managing to convey surprise despite their alien nature. "Your Highness, protocol dictates," I said, "leave us." The words came out as a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the stone floor. "All of you, now." Rex watched in amazement as the elite warriors beings who probably hadn't retreated from anything in their entire lives filed out of the throne room with obvious reluctance. The massive doors sealed behind them with a resonant boom that seemed to echo forever in the vast chamber. Now it was just Rex and 7 feet of terrified alien royalty. Princess Cathara began to pace, her clawed feet clicking against the polished stone. Her movements were no longer the controlled grace of a predator. They were the restless, agitated motions of something caged. Rex found himself studying her more closely, noting details he'd missed in his initial terror. The bone armor wasn't just decorative, it was functional. Designed to deflect energy weapons and projectiles while allowing for full range of motion. The skulls on her chest weren't randomly placed trophies. They were arranged in a specific pattern, and now that he looked closer, Rex could see that several of them bore identical markings carved into the bone. Family crests, maybe. Or clan symbols? "You noticed," she said suddenly, stopping her pacing to stare at him. "You actually noticed." "Noticed what?" Rex asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew. Princess Cathara's clawed hand moved to her chest armor, fingers tracing the arrangement of skulls with something that might have been reverence or regret. In 300 years of rule, no outsider has ever looked at these and seen anything other than trophies of conquest. They see what they expect to see, the barbaric princess wearing the bones of her enemies. Rex felt his mouth go dry. "But they're not enemy skulls, are they?" "No," the word came out as barely a whisper. "They are the skulls of my siblings. 7 brothers and 4 sisters, all killed in the ritual combats that determine succession to the throne. It is our way only the strongest may rule, and strength is proven through the death of one's rivals." The implications hit Rex like a physical blow. He'd stumbled onto something that was clearly a state secret, something that could probably get him killed in ways that would make a simple execution seem merciful. But more than that, he'd done something that apparently no alien in 3 centuries had managed. He'd read Zarian cultural cues instinctively. "The bone structure," he said slowly, pieces falling into place. "The cranial development, the jaw formation, they're all variations on the same basic template. Royal bloodline markers." Princess Cathara's eyes widened, and she took another step back. "How do you know our anatomical classifications? What intelligence networks does Earth maintain in Zarian space?" "None," Rex said quickly, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "I swear, I'm not a spy. I'm just observant, I guess. I've been around enough different species to pick up on patterns. Bone density variations, cranial ridge development, dental structure. It's all just data points." "Just data points," she repeated, her voice hollow. "You casually observe and categorize biological markers that our own intelligence services spend years training agents to recognize." Rex was beginning to understand why she looked so terrified. In a galaxy where information was power and the ability to read alien cultures could mean the difference between successful diplomacy and interstellar war, His casual observations represented something unprecedented. Humans weren't supposed to be able to do this, at least, not without extensive training and cultural immersion. "There's more, isn't there?" he asked, studying her expression. "This isn't just about me recognizing royal bone. Structure." Princess Kithara moved to a wall display that Rex hadn't noticed before, a complex star chart showing the current political boundaries of known space. With one clawed finger, she traced the borders of the Zarian Empire, a sprawling collection of star systems that stretched across nearly a quarter of the galaxy. "For 2,000 years, we have maintained our dominance through fear and superior military technology," she said. "But our greatest advantage has always been our ability to read other species, to understand their psychology, their cultural weaknesses, their breaking points. It is what allows us to conquer and control races that outnumber us 1,000 to 1. She turned back to face him, and Rex could see something like desperation in those golden eyes. "But you read us. Without training, without cultural briefings, without any preparation at all, you looked at me and saw not just what I wanted you to see, but what I was trying to hide." The full scope of what she was saying began to dawn on Rex. "You think humans might be able to do this with other species too?" "I don't think it," she said grimly. "I know it. 3 months ago, human diplomats successfully mediated a trade dispute between the Crystalline Collective and the Void Walkers, 2 species that have been at war for 6 centuries. They found common ground that our best negotiators couldn't identify in decades of trying." Rex felt a chill run down his spine. "And 2 weeks ago, a human merchant captain talked his way out of a hive mind interrogation by somehow convincing them he was more valuable as a trading partner than as a source of information. The hive mind doesn't negotiate, they assimilate or destroy. But somehow, this human found a way to communicate with them on their own terms." Princess Kithara nodded grimly. "Pattern recognition, cultural intuition, psychological adaptability. Your species demonstrates these abilities at a level we've never encountered. And if humans can read us as easily as you just read me, your empire's primary advantage disappears," Rex finished. "If humans can understand and predict Zarian behavior, then other species can learn to do it too. Worse than that," she said, moving closer to him with predatory grace. "If humans can read us, they can manipulate us. They can turn our own psychology against us, exploit our cultural blind spots, maybe even predict our military strategies." Rex found himself backing toward the throne, his mind racing. "So what happens now? You kill me to keep the secret? Start a war with Earth before we become a threat?" Princess Kithara stopped just arm's reach away, her golden eyes boring into his. "That depends entirely on you, Rex Carter. Because right now, you represent either humanity's greatest diplomatic asset, or its most dangerous weapon." The way she said his name with perfect pronunciation, despite never having heard it before, sent another chill through him. She'd been reading him just as thoroughly as he'd been reading her, picking up cues and information that he hadn't even realized he was broadcasting. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Her smile was all teeth and sharp edges. "I want to make you an offer that will change the course of galactic history. But first, I need to know, are you brave enough to help me fake my own death?" Rex stared at Princess Kithara, certain he'd misheard her. "I'm sorry, did you just ask me to help you fake your own death? Because I have to tell you, my day has been weird enough already without adding regicide to the list." The princess moved to a hidden panel in the wall, her claws dancing across alien controls with practiced ease. The star chart dissolved, replaced by what looked like architectural blueprints of the complex they were currently in. "Not regicide," she said without looking back at him. "Escape? From what? You're literally the ruler of this place." Kithara's laugh was bitter, devoid of any humor. "I am the current survivor of the succession wars, Rex Carter. There is a difference. Even now, my remaining cousins plot against me, The Zarian way demands that I kill them before they kill me, and their children after that, and their children's children, until the bloodline is purified and only one remains. Rex felt his stomach turn. How many? 43 direct relatives with legitimate claims to the throne. 17 of them are children under the age of 10 by your standards. Her claws paused over the controls. I have been princess for 8 years. In that time, I have been forced to execute 26 members of my own family to maintain power. The weight of what she was saying hit Rex like a physical blow. This wasn't just about political maneuvering or palace intrigue. This was about a system that demanded the systematic murder of an entire bloodline. And you want out? I want to disappear, she said, turning back to face him. But a Zarian princess cannot simply abdicate. The only way to leave the throne is through death, and the only acceptable death is in combat against a worthy opponent. Rex was beginning to see where this was going, and he didn't like it one bit. Please tell me you're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting. Princess Cathura's smile was predatory, but there was something else there, hope, maybe, or desperation. You are going to challenge me to single combat, Rex Carter. And you are going to win. Have you lost your mind? Rex backed away from her, his hands raised defensively. Lady, I'm a salvage runner, not a warrior. You could probably tear me in half with your bare hands. Hell, you could probably tear me in half with one hand while filing your claws with the other. Which is exactly why it will work, she said, moving to another wall panel. This one revealed a hidden armory filled with weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum of galactic warfare. No one will believe that a human civilian could defeat a Zarian princess in fair combat. Therefore, it must have been treachery poison, perhaps. Or some kind of technological advantage. Rex watched in growing alarm as she selected what looked like a ceremonial sword. Its blade gleaming with an inner light that suggested it was more than just sharpened metal. So your plan is for me to cheat my way to victory, making it look like I poisoned you or something. Close. Cathara tested the weapon's balance with movements that spoke of decades of training. You will challenge me publicly, in front of the Death Guard. We will fight, and during the combat, I will appear to suffer some kind of technological malfunction with my armor's life support systems. I will collapse, apparently dead, and you will be declared the victor by default. And then what? Your guards execute me for killing their princess? No, she said, sheathing the sword and turning to face him. Then you claim the ancient right of conquest. By Zarian law, anyone who defeats a member of the royal family in single combat may claim their possessions, their territory, and their titles. Rex felt his knees go weak. You want me to become a Zarian prince? Temporarily. Long enough to grant myself a posthumous pardon and arrange for my body to be transported off-world for burial in the traditional manner. Once we're away from Zarian space, I can resume my true identity, and you can renounce your claim to the throne. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was absolutely, completely, utterly suicidal. There are about 1,000 ways this could go wrong, Rex said. Yes, Cathara agreed. But there is one way it could go right. And that one way represents the only chance I have of escaping this life without murdering the rest of my family. Rex found himself studying her face, looking for signs of deception or hidden motives. What he saw instead was something he recognized from his own mirror on the worst days, the desperate hope of someone who had run out of options. What's in it for me? Assuming we don't both end up dead, what do I get out of this? Princess Cathara moved to yet another hidden panel, this one revealing a holographic display that made Rex's eyes widen. It was a star chart, but not like any he'd ever seen. This one showed the locations of derelict ships, abandoned space stations, and lost colonies scattered throughout Zarian space, a salvage runner's dream manifest. The coordinates of every significant wreck in the Empire, she said. Ships that have been lost for centuries, space stations abandoned during the expansion wars, entire colonies that were evacuated and forgotten. Some of them contain technology that your species has never seen. Rex felt his mouth go dry. The value of what she was showing him was beyond calculation. A single intact Zarian warship could set him up for life. A lost colony with its infrastructure intact could make him wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. This is incredible. But why give it to me? Because you did something today that no one has done in 300 years, Kithara said, deactivating the display. You saw me as a person, not a monster. You recognized the pain I carry, the burden of the choices I've been forced to make. And because... She paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Because I believe your species represents something new in the galaxy. Something that could change everything. What do you mean? Kithara moved to the throne room's massive windows, gazing out at the alien landscape beyond. For millennia, the galaxy has been divided into predators and prey, conquerors and conquered. Species rise and fall based on their ability to dominate others or avoid being dominated. But humans seem to operate by different rules. Rex joined her at the window, following her gaze to the silver trees swaying in the alien wind. Different how? You don't just adapt to other species, you understand them. You don't just survive in hostile environments, you make them better. Your diplomats don't just negotiate treaties. They find solutions that benefit everyone involved. She turned to look at him, and Rex was surprised to see something like wonder in her golden eyes. What if there was a third option? What if instead of predators and prey, there could be partners? The implications of what she was suggesting were staggering. A galaxy where species work together instead of constantly fighting for dominance. Where understanding replaced fear and cooperation replaced conquest. It was a beautiful dream, and probably completely impossible. You really think humans could make that happen? Rex asked. I think humans are already making it happen, Kithara replied. The question is whether the rest of us are wise enough to help, or foolish enough to try to stop you. A soft chime echoed through the throne room, and Kithara's expression immediately shifted back to the mask of royal authority. The Death Guard grows impatient, she said. We must make our choice now, Rex Carter. Will you help me escape this cage of blood and bone? Will you take the first step toward changing the galaxy? Rex looked at the alien princess, this warrior who had killed her own siblings to survive, who carried their bones as both trophy and burden, who was willing to risk everything for a chance at redemption. He thought about the coordinates she'd shown him, about the wealth and adventure they represented. But mostly, he thought about the hope in her voice when she talked about a different kind of galaxy. All right, he said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. Let's fake your death and see if we can save the universe while we're at it. Princess Kithara's smile was radiant and terrifying in equal measure. Then let us begin.